they took a ruler, a pencil, and eraser, and they created the provinces of Alberta and Saskatchewan. And that's the 1905 Act, the Alberta 1905 Act, and Saskatchewan 1905 Act. And what people need to understand is there were no negotiations, there was no boardroom discussion, there was no back and forth. It was just, this is how it's going to be. Specifically with the independence message, it wasn't getting through. It wasn't being delivered in a way that women could receive it, or women could understand it, or women would even want to listen to it. And so we sat down, we sort of came up with another message that's all the same information, just delivered differently. We like to fix things, right? That's how we're wired. We fix dinner, we fix our hair, we fix our makeup, we try to fix our husbands, right? Like, it's just, we like to fix things, and this can't be fixed. What it is fear of the unknown. Helping people to walk through that cognitive dissonance. Like, it really sucks to have to admit that there are people doing things almost on purpose, and sometimes on purpose, to hurt you. And so to walk my fellow Albertans through, it's literally the stages of grief sometimes, to get from here to here. And then the kind of a righteous anger kicks in, and then they're ready to go. How dare we celebrate being in someone's kitchen where there's 8 of us and a 3-month-old baby, and we're just playing, pass the baby, because we're nurturers, that's what we do. It's like we're supposed to not enjoy that kind of community anymore for whatever reason. I'll never understand, because it's so fulfilling. It's so fulfilling to be able to do that. Why mothers have been so minimized in their position and stature in society, it's just a direct attack. It's a complete direct attack on the family. And one of the things that I have really, really admired and enjoyed about how this movement just sort of has organically come together is its faith, family, freedom. That's our battle cry. Is faith, family, freedom, and we mean it.
Thank you so much, Kathy Flett, for joining us today. We're very happy because, number one, I'm happy to be speaking with a woman and with somebody that is involved with the independence movement and speaking up on those issues specifically. But first of all, and we always start with this, where can people find you? Because I do think it's really important that people go check you out if they don't know who you are.
Sure. Probably the easiest and where I am the most active is on X. So just Kathy Flett, you'll find me there. And then I do have a very, very simple website if they want to go there. It's just kathyflett.ca.
Perfect. And they're all linked down below. And also, can you give us a bit of your background and what experiences have shaped, well, who you are today and how you got to where you are today?
My background. It's not nearly as fancy as most of the people I hang out with, but it is a good one. I'm an Alberta girl, born and raised. This is all I know. It's everything that I love, which is why I'm eyeballs deep into the fight here. And a northern Alberta girl by trade. That's where I grew up. So I'm rural, like right to the bones. I'm rural. So that's kind of my people. That's who I tend to be able to connect with a little bit more. There is a difference in the rural urban divide, and we can talk about that later if you want to, because I live in Sherwood Park now, so now I'm in that urban spot, and I joke I've been in a cultural mess ever since. Like, I just can't get used to it. But nevertheless, as far as like a career or whatever, I've spent most of my time raising my kids. That's where I was at home. That's where I felt the best, and that's where I had the most fun. And on top of that, though, I did also do some time working in addictions and mental health in that field. So that was me up in Fort McMurray, helping people to get off the street and get on their feet, perhaps for the first time ever, to get their lives in order for the first time ever. And I got a lot of joy out of that. Having that front row seat to people's success was amazing, and gave me a lot of stories to share. That's for sure. And that's pretty much it.
Now you're helping the nation of Alberta get on its feet. So there's a little bit of a parallel there.
There kind of is. And it's a lot of similarities. You're talking to people who don't understand what's going on, and how come your lives are broken because of politics or politicians or decisions that other people have made that now you have to live under, and helping people to walk through that cognitive dissonance. Like, It really sucks to have to admit that there are people doing things almost on purpose and sometimes on purpose to hurt you. And so to walk my fellow Albertans through, it's literally the stages of grief sometimes, to get from here to here, and then the kind of a righteous anger kicks in, and then they're ready to go. But I can't say that all of the work that I did helping people who were the most vulnerable did not certainly lend to what I'm doing right now, because people are people, and it's all the same.
And I bet so. Initially, what sparked your interest in Alberta independence, or was there one moment or several different moments that made you, both as just yourself, but also as a mother, as a woman, look into Alberta independence and think, okay, I want to get fully behind it, and then start advocacy work for it?
It actually started a long time ago, decades, and we used to have a paper here. It was a magazine called the Alberta Report. And when I was a teenager, I landed myself at an aunt and uncle's that I stayed at for a little while, and they always had this magazine delivered to them. And I'm reading this, and I'm going, "Well, that's not what I learned yesterday in school." And then I'd flip the page, "Well, that's not what I learned last year." And I started to see that there was maybe some things that they weren't telling us. And so that sort of started me down my journey. And then I became a very young mom, and that all went to the wayside. But it was really when that was kind of when that first seed was planted, that something wasn't right. Something wasn't right. And then fast forward a bunch of years later, still paid attention to politics, still always tried to be an educated voter, just never really knew what to do with it. And then I became a grandmother, and that just puts Mama Bear on steroids. It's the only way to really describe it. In 2019, when Trudeau won again, that night I actually had my grandson in my arms that night of the election, and I was like, "That's it. That is it. Like we're just going for it no matter what." And so I've been in the ebbs and flows. I always chuckle at some of the newer faces in this movement talking about the history of what had happened, and they talk about the Wexit movement or they talk about this. Well, I was there. Um, like John Bolton talking about the Wexit meeting when you guys were chatting with him, right? I watched that interview, and he was talking about the Wexit meeting that he went to in Calgary. I was speaking at that Wexit meeting. I was on that stage. And so it's kind of fun watching all these guys. They're there, they're ready. They've kind of caught up to where the rest of us were several years ago, and now we're just linking arms, locking our footsteps together, and going for it. And I love it.
And you also co-founded the Alberta Women's Independence Network, and specifically talking to and targeting women, which we think, and I've continuously said, it's very important to get that 50% of the population, but the messaging has to be very different. So how did you choose to start specifically focusing on women?
I didn't. That was Angela's fault. I can't take credit for this. So you need to talk to her too. You need to reach out to Angela as well. So she and I actually met when we were both working within the Wild Rose Independence Party of Alberta. And we became very good friends at that time, and a lot of similar ways of doing things, similar thoughts, whatever. Anyways, that all went sideways. And then through a series of events, she calls me up one day, and we still kept in contact because we're very good friends, right? So she calls me up one day. It was in March of last year, and she says, "So I've been praying, and I have this idea. I think the Lord wants us to run with, but I'm going to run it past you." And I was like, "Okay." So she says, "We need to reach out to the women," and I'm like, "Okay, well, you heard wrong. We're not doing that." And I was not for it at all, not even at all. And she said, "Well, just go pray about it yourself, but hear me out." She says, "What did we notice the whole entire time that we've been in the trenches here? What have we noticed? Is that there are not a lot of women. We are always outnumbered. We are always outnumbered. And how come?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I just figured because women were not nearly as foolish as we are to get into the trenches. I don't know." And so, anyways, long story short, we sat down and realized that specifically with the independence message, it wasn't getting through. It just, it wasn't being delivered in a way that women could receive it, or women could understand it, or women would even want to listen to it. And so we sat down, we sort of came up with another message that's all the same information, just delivered differently. And then we came up with these little pamphlets, looks like this, little pamphlets that two sides and then the two sides in the middle. And we just threw it out there and said, ladies, if you want to know about this, give us a call. We'll come to your living rooms. Have vehicle, we'll travel. And we've been literally all over Alberta in more living rooms and kitchens and backyards and coffee shops. And then that morphed into more speaking engagements to larger groups, but still using that same message. And it's working, obviously. And it's the same information, just delivered a little bit differently. And we're still doing it. We're still getting invited to go into people's homes and to share it. So it's good.
Well, I seen the canvassers also were going to people's homes. Did they get that idea from you?
Oh, I doubt it. No, I doubt it. No, I think that was just to get those signatures, because the canvassers weren't. We were told when we were canvassing to not. That's not the time to really engage in a conversation about the pros or the cons of this. That's just the time to gather the signatures. So whereas Angela and I were saying, okay, well, here's how the country was designed. Here's how it's built. Look at it, the maps of all the seats in the House of Commons and in the Senate, and what do you notice, and how do we fix it? Oh wait, we can't because it's not broken, and sort of walk people through all of that. So no, it wouldn't be the same as the canvassers. Um, However, I wouldn't be surprised if some of those canvassers might have said, maybe you want Kathy or Angela to come visit you.
And I hope they were saying that. And for you,
Yeah.
and the way you see it, what specific or unique perspectives do women bring to the independence movement?
The unique perspective, well, the disconnect that we recognized is that, and all the men are going to go amen as soon as I say this. The disconnect that we recognize is that we like to fix things, right? That's how we're wired. We fix dinner, we fix our hair, we fix our makeup, we try to fix our husbands, right? Like it's just we like to fix things, and this can't be fixed. And so we would have to walk the women through how confederation can't be fixed so that they could wrap their heads around it and then come out the other side and go, okay, well, we can't fix this, so here's our only option is Alberta independence. Now what does that look like for my future? How do I still protect my kids? How do I make sure my grandchildren are going to grow up still in a safe environment? What about my pension? What about my job? What about my community? What about my church? And all the social side of things is where the women were at. And so that's the perspective that we bring to this whole independence movement, right? The guys are rightfully so. They're about the protection of my property, protection of my family, protection of my finances, protection. You guys are the protectors. That's how you're wired. We're inside there looking after everything else. And so once we were able to help these women kind of cross over um that gap in knowledge, it has just gone crazy. It's great. It's wonderful.
And I think also as specifically as women, but as a society, we've forgotten about those biological impulses and drives that are still within us, and we try to remove them, or we've had institutions since society itself try to remove them. But I do think it is important to recognize it, especially when you're trying to message to a specific sector. And I, again, with the whole going to people's houses and being able to be in their kitchens or in their coffee shops in the spaces where women are, it also harkens back to an era where women used to go to each other's houses either to sell something or talk about specific things or organize politically without the husbands finding out. So I do like that it does harken back to that era. And I think, in a way, but I wanted to ask, how did you decide to start going to where women are instead of kind of waiting for women to come to you?
Oh, that's an easy answer. Because what we also noticed is in the rallies that were taking place or in the bigger meetings that are taking place, the men always outnumbered the women. You just look around the room and it was a fact. There was nothing you could do to change that fact. And then the other thing that we noticed is that the when it came time for Q&A, the men would go up, but the women maybe not, right? And then the other thing that we noticed in the political meetings that we were in, where the women were typically outnumbered out front with the men. There's some of us that are an exception to this rule, but we're literally an exception. Uh, if there's more men in the room than women, the women won't talk because the men are a little bit, you guys are just naturally aggressive, right? You just are. That's just how you are. And we're naturally not. Some of us are, but most of us are not. And so that's how we thought, well, let's go to where the women are, where they're comfortable, they're in their own space, they're in their own place. Men are always welcome, but they usually don't make up more of the population in the room. The women do. And it's where we're at home, right? We've got food all over and wine and coffee and tea and it's our element to have these really challenging conversations. And so that's how we decided, well, let's go where we're most comfortable, which is usually in our kitchens and in our living rooms. So it just took off from there.
I think that's incredibly smart as well. And I'm glad that somebody did figure that out. But on your travels and while you were in people's kitchens and coffee shops, what were some of the most surprising things that came up during conversations or questions that people were asking or objections even?
Probably the most surprising was how little people know about the Westminster system and how it's set up. That I think was the most surprising to me. And I thought, well, it can't be that all of us didn't pay attention in school. Like,
Well,
it clearly wasn't taught or not in the way that, not in, not completely, just little maybe bits and pieces of it. So that was the first surprise that we had. And that's when we really went back and went, okay, now we know that that's a gap. Let's hone in on that and let's close that gap to help people. Um, But otherwise, as far as any surprising questions, not really. All very logical. A lot of what ifs and what abouts. What about my banking? What about my mortgage? What about this? And very good questions that need answers, that deserve answers.
and they also think that deserve answers coming from a different perspective or with a different way of giving those answers. Because, as you mentioned, the men are sometimes way too logical of things and it might not get through. And it even happens to me when I'm trying to figure things out. There is something special about a women getting a message from another woman or an answer from another woman as well. So I do think that that is very important. And also the objections. What are the specific objections that women are giving to
Mm.
independence?
The specific objection, sorry, yeah, you asked that and I forgot that question. Um, I can't say that there have been specific objections. What it is fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of the unknown. Well, I don't see exactly what this house is going to look like. I can't go into an open house and check out all the rooms, and so I don't know what it is, right? I don't know what I'm saying yes to. That's been the greatest objection is trying to get these ladies, and there's not many of them, but there's enough to just sort of think outside the box and not be so risk averse and realize that if we don't do this, the alternative is awful. That you like it's just it's not good. It's not good.
And we're seeing also with for policies, for example, and then speaking of British Columbia, but Canada specifically, there's a lot of worrying trends and things that they're implementing on education, on healthcare, on things that specifically also affect women. So for women, or how I'm guessing, how do you frame the specific policies on health, education, or things that matter to women within an independent Alberta?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The first thing that I always say, and typically in my speeches as well, is that once we're out from under the thumb of the Canada Health Act, we will actually have health care. We really will, right? We will actually have it because it's not going to be Ottawa that dictates and determines what procedures we can do, what medicines we can have, how much, like who can come in and be a doctor or who cannot. Like they're out of that game now. It's up to us to decide. And in fact, I contend that we could be a healthcare destination. I really do. I contend that we could be because we've already got the best and the brightest and a lot of money here to be able to do that, which is the other thing. Once we're not giving 50% of our resource revenues to Ottawa, think of what we can build for ourselves because we're not handing it over to other people who won't build for themselves. And so then that's when the wheels really start turning, right? Or you start talking about education. Well, now we don't have Ottawa meddling with our school boards like they like to do. They do it covertly, but that's where it's coming from. Now we determine again, back to just regular math, English, science. Let's get back to basics. Rather than social studies, let's call it history like it is, not us trying to social engineer our kids into thinking something that's not true. Let's get back to that. Let's get right back to the basics of even in our universities, right? We can clean house in our universities because there will not be that federal intervention in there. Our municipalities are a disaster with very few exceptions. Again, where does that stem from? Oh, yeah, Ottawa. Like all roads always lead to Ottawa without even trying.
It's absolutely crazy because we interviewed Dallas Brody, but I had never read the platform for One BC. And there's some things in there that, like, I can't believe she even has to state this, but she wants to bring back letter grades in British Columbia because they've completely gotten rid of them. Are you crazy? Like, this is where Alberta is going to be headed if we don't get our independence.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And in some ways, we're not very far behind BC on some of that with regards to the education system for these kids that we've got. And even something as asinine as taking a whole bunch of hundreds of millions of dollars out of the CPP. People are worried about, hands off me CPP. Well, how about taking all of that money to pay for kids in India to come here to go to university on a full ride? Well, we've got kids that can't get in. Like, how is that right? And again, that's Ottawa. That's not us. So, and not that anybody has anything wrong with anybody coming here, but we come first. And I'm very unapologetic about that. My kids come first. And so we'll be able to make that happen.
And you mentioned there people worried about their CPP and caring about more other people, maybe in India or et cetera, taking that money and using it for that. And I think a lot of the youth has become disengaged and apathetic because they don't see any way to actually create a change. We also know that both from polling, but also just regular interactions, young women are a lot more left leaning than their male counterparts and a lot more, I would say, disengaged in when it comes to politics and they just don't want to get into it, or they're very engaged, but on the other side, maybe sometimes misinformed in a way. So what is the best way to get to, and talking about cities as well, campaigning going into cities, Edmonton, Calgary, what's the best way to get that message across to young women and to teenagers, maybe even to understand what's actually going on and to at least plant that seed of independence or plant that seed of thinking in a different way? Because I know rurally it might be a very different message, even with women between rural and the cities.
Yeah. Well, as far as engaging the youth, it's up to my generation to support the youth in engaging themselves, if that makes sense, right? Because they're not going to listen to me. I'm just a 50 something lady who doesn't know what she's talking about. However, they are going to listen to Maddie and Macy Holmes, who are their age, right? And so it's supporting Maddie and Macy in what they're doing so they can reach out to the ones who are going to listen to them or anybody else that's in that age category that's doing it. Supporting them, not expecting anybody to listen to me, but making sure that that next generation who does understand and gets it has every tool at their disposal to do what they need to do to share it with their cohort.
Well, I'll also say with the new generation, very often they don't like to have in-person dialogue. And online spaces very much they'll engage in content sometimes that will really surprise us, and it's a way to maybe plant a seed so when they do see somebody in person that wants to start that dialogue, they're more willing to do it. So hopefully, and we have great content creators and people in the space educating online, so I hope that plants enough seeds so the young people in cities, when they do see us trying to have conversations, they're going to be willing to engage rather than walk the other way.
Well, and I think they will, right? They will, because the way that you guys are delivering the message in a way that makes sense to them, just like Angela and I started delivering the message in a way that made sense to women. It's the same idea. You're just doing it with a different demographic. That's all. But it's the same idea. And so that's why I get a little bit nervous when people start talking about the independence movement needing to come all under one banner or all under one leader or whatever, just because I've seen a lot go sideways with that over the last 7 years. But also, it's been this. I hate to use the word diversity because it has just been so prostituted, but I don't know another one. But the diversity of voices that we have in this space is what has made it come this far, right? Nobody was silenced. Nobody, somebody said, had some bozo eruption. Well, it didn't bring everybody down. It just made that person look stupid. It just, that's how we've gotten to where we are today because it truly is a people movement. It's a grassroots movement. It's all the, all the family members at the table of every generation that's making this go forth. And so that's why I think it's fantastic. And you're right. Like you guys, I was gonna call you kids. I'm sorry. You're younger one. You like you are. Your thumbs are always really busy. You know how to do that. And then I go to these other go to rallies or whatever, and it's all people my age and up. And they say, "Well, where are the youth? Where are the youth?" I'm like, "They're here. They're just this is not their jam. This is not their thing. This is they don't do this. This is our thing. Leave them alone. Let them connect with themselves the way that they want to, the way that works for them. And we'll just continue to get the message out."
Well, and I also think that, I mean, we've been talking a lot about young women, but young men, Pierre Poilievre carried a lot of water for us. They've had their awakening as conservatives,
Yeah.
as populists, as I think they're going to get the message real quick, especially when that question actually gets on that ballot and it becomes a real reality. You're going to see young conservative men, I think, stand up. They're going to take to social media. And I think that's going to have a huge impact, not just in real life, but in the digital spaces as well, to affect a lot of youth. So I know in the independence movement, I give a hard time to Poilievre a lot of the time as well, but he's done a big favor by helping wake up that demographic of young men, I think.
I think so too. And exactly what you're talking about, waking up on social media. Why do you think Carnier all are trying to pass a bunch of laws to shut all that down? Right? Because that's where you guys congregate. That's where you guys meet. That's your platform. And so of course he doesn't want you to actually know the truth of what's going on, especially you young guys. How dare you young strong men know what's going on and have the audacity to stand up to these old ones. Forget it. And I wish more people would put that together. I mean, maybe they're starting to and I just haven't realized it, but it's true. It's true.
And it also becomes dangerous for them if the young men actually return to noticing what's going on and wanting to enact change upon it. That's why they want them lulled and demasculinized and completely focused on other things and other social issues that they can't actually change. And I do see it that way. And with women, they've done that almost the exact opposite. Funny, I was talking about on another show talking about this. With women, they've empowered them to the point that it also becomes a point of failure because they're not taking into consideration that women and men are different. And that has been completely removed from the lexicon. And again, the biological differences, we can't talk about those either. So I do think the way that you're able to get to women and speak to women specifically is also very dangerous for them because it's making women think like women, which hasn't happened in a long time as
Yeah.
well.
Well, that's just it. And how dare we celebrate being in someone's kitchen where there's 8 of us and a 3-month-old baby and we're just playing, pass the baby because we're nurturers, that's what we do. It's like we're supposed to not enjoy that kind of community anymore for whatever reason. I'll never understand because it's so fulfilling. It's so fulfilling to be able to do that and to stand side by side and then to support your guys' generation as you're coming into your own and figuring out, where's your place in this world and how are you going to make that your own in and while respecting the differences in the genders, right? Like we're different for a reason. It's because we're complementary. It's not that one's better than the other. We're supposed to complement one another. And what has happened to our young guys is criminal. It's absolutely criminal what they've tried to do to the young men. So we've got some work cut out for us, I suppose. But I have a feeling once a few of them get back in touch with their inner masculinity, it won't take very long.
Well, and we talk a lot about I guess, the broken vision of what modernity or liberal society had promised. And it's two parents going to work every day, 8, 12 hours a day, giving your kid over to the state, not really having true family values, putting your parents into old folks' home when it should be multi-generational to help raise the child. And I often, um, kind of hope on my show, and we raise these questions, that I hope we can get to a place where a one income can support a family again and buy a house, so we can have um, multi-generational unit raising a kind of a family and the next generation, and build a strong society to reverse the dismal birth rates around the world right now.
Mhm.
I agree. And that's one of the things that our independence is going to be able to facilitate,
Yes.
because suddenly you don't need two jobs just to pay the mortgage or to feed your family. Like, you're going to be able to, if mom wants to work, great. If dad wants to work, great. If mom wants to work part time, go. But not because she has to, but because she wants to. That's a difference. And why mothers have been so minimized in their position and stature in society, uh, it's just a direct attack. It's a complete direct attack on the family. And one of the things that I have really, really admired and enjoyed about how this movement just sort of has organically come together is its faith, family, freedom. That's our battle cry, is faith, family, freedom, and we mean it. We completely mean it. You go to any one of these. I was at the Whistle Stop on the weekend, and oh my gosh, like, it what literally was. It was faith, family, and freedom. There was dogs and kids and every generation and every manner of person and food everywhere and everybody having a good time, and it was lovely. And that's what we need to get back to. But when everybody's working 60 hours a week and you don't even have time to sleep, let alone see your kids, you're not going to get out there in your community anymore, because you don't have time and you're exhausted. And I love the idea of being able to offer that to Albertans. It'll take a bit. We're going to have to get our feet under us and let the dust settle. But once it settles, we're also going to have to build a wall, because everybody else is going to want to come here too.
Exactly. But at least having that priority and being able to vocalize it and say that it is important to maybe be able to have a one family household, one income household, to be able to raise the next generation, and recognizing that a lot of the young people that don't want to have kids might be actually because they can't and they don't see a real future or the path to be able to do it, or the opportunities that are not even laid out there for them. And I've been shouting from the rooftops about the population collapse and what's been going on with birth rates around the world. But I think if you give that incentive to the youth and to young people and say, okay, you can relax a little bit and you can actually achieve this, the birth rates will just follow instantly. And I think an independent Alberta does give that, and can maybe not make the promise fully, but at least give that proposition as something that you want to be able to achieve.
Exactly. Exactly. And take the pressure off of all of the generations. Like, I was reading an article the other day about the number of seniors that had to go back to work. That's grandma and grandpa that could have been, supporting mom because she hasn't slept in 3 days because she has a colicky baby. But now they can't go support mom because they have to support themselves. And that's the broken down structure that has taken place, and that has weakened us. That is what has weakened the social fabric. So we really people so often go, oh, if we just give you another pipeline, you guys will be happy and shut up. No, actually, it's bigger than that. That's a mere symptom. It's a mere symptom of a much, much bigger problem.
Well, yeah, we talk about that a lot. I mean, it came up we had our show just before we came in for this interview. And again, she's in talks for the MOU, the pipeline, whatever. I'm like, there's a million other issues. If people are going to vote against independence because they're going to throw a pipeline with a million strings attached. We have some work to do, and I don't think they are. I think people are starting to see all the cultural issues and all the other issues that just are been piling up, not just for a decade, but multiple decades. I looked at some of the history. This thing has been going on and coming up every couple of generations for almost 100 years now.
Well, since 1905. Like, since we became a province, and that's the thing, people don't always know. This started even, well, actually, even before that, that there were a lot of tensions between the folks that lived here in Ottawa. There's one quote that we give. I'll just grab it so I don't misquote it. That we run on all the time. The people of the Northwest are allowed but a degree more control of their affairs than the serfs of Siberia. Frank Oliver said that in Edmonton in August of 1885. There is nothing new under the sun here. Nothing.
And I do like that you have put a lot of emphasis on history and remembering or even relearning or learning for the first time the actual history. So, what are some of the more
Yeah.
underrepresented or not really well known points of Alberta history that you like to bring up?
Oh, well, so what Alberta and Saskatchewan is now, that all used to be territories of the province of the Northwest Territories, right? So we were just all these little chunks in this great big province, and we were being advertised as the last best west at that time. That was Ottawa's doing. Oh, come on up, land of milk and honey. We're not going to tell you about the snakes in the south and the minus. Oh my gosh, is it ever cold in the north? Just bring everybody. We got lots. We're going to give you some land. You do something with it in 3 years. The land is yours. Like it was epic. And so people came, especially from the US. They came up, and these were like the roll up your sleeves, hard workers, like how we are now. This is our history, right? Um, well, they apparently worked a little bit too hard and got a little bit angry when they couldn't get things done because their closest representatives were either in Regina, provincially, or in Ottawa, right? And we have to remember at that time there was you couldn't text, you couldn't email, you couldn't even phone for heaven's sakes, right? So they got together with the premier at the time and said, "Listen, like we've got a problem. You gave us this to-do list, but we can't get it done because we don't have the autonomy that we need to do this, and we don't have local representation." So they sat down at the table and they came up with this idea. They just sort of did this big brain dump of ideas, and it was a bunch of lawyers and businessmen at the time, and said, well, what if we take what we know today as Alberta and Saskatchewan and create the province of Buffalo? Let's just create a new province. And of course, Haltain, who had all this territory to cover, thought this was a great idea. And so he took that idea to Ottawa, where every great idea goes to die. And that happened. They said, absolutely not. Absolutely not, because there was so much growth in the population that the folks in Ottawa, the Laurentian elites, who are still there today, who understand how the Westminster system works, knew that if our population got too big, the balance of power would shift from the east to the west, and they would not have that. So rather than make the province of Buffalo, they said, we'll one up you. And they took a ruler, a pencil, and eraser, and they created the provinces of Alberta and Saskatchewan. And that's the 1905 Act, the Alberta 1905 Act, and Saskatchewan 1905 Act. And what people need to understand is there were no negotiations, there was no boardroom discussion, there was no back and forth. It was just, this is how it's going to be. That's it. Oh, and by the way, we're not even going to let you elect your first premier. We'll appoint you one. Here you go. That's how our province was started when it didn't need to. We had problem solvers at the table who said, you know what, we want to build this country. We really do. We moved our entire families over here for a reason. And then this is how they were slapped in the face. And so there's been this tension ever since that has never gone away. And now it's culminated to something bigger than we've ever seen before.
You kind of spoken on it already with that last phrase you said, but how can history inform the current independence movement? What can we take from history to bring it into and help with the independence movement?
Well, nothing has changed, right? So people say, oh, well, you just have to try harder. You just need to talk to Ottawa a little more. They just don't understand. Well, they've not understood on purpose forever. Not like we've tried. Remember the Reform Party? The West wants in, right? That was the Reform Party. Well, where is it now? It's in the history books. This generation probably doesn't even know about the Reform Party. My generation was ecstatic when they made official opposition. We thought we'd finally arrived, but nope, that's in the history books. And then when Harper got in, there were so many hungover heads in this province the next day because the West was in. Finally, one of our own was in. And what do we have to show for it? An equalization formula that now includes 50% of our resource revenues while excluding Quebec's so that Harper could ensure Eastern votes. That's what we have to show for it. Like, and so no, there's no sense. We've tried, we've done everything. There's nothing more that we could do. So we go our own way.
We've also seen, and you just mentioned it as well, there's been a lot of independence waves, or at least thoughts of independence since the inception, since the beginning. That's what they want, you wanted to be from the beginning. But
Yeah.
what makes this wave, or and you've been involved as well for a while now, what makes this wave and this grassroots movement different from all those other times?
Uh, I think more people are frustrated and willing to listen to our frustrations, and then they're aligning their frustrations with our frustrations and realizing that they're not alone and what and it's then they're not crazy. They really are seeing reality for what it is. So I think that's a big part of it. And then the second part as to how it got this far goes back to what I said about all the voices at the table, not under one roof, but all of us are there. And what that has done is decentralized the movement and has made it Albertans' movement. That's the first thing that it did. The second thing that it did, and I don't know that we did this purposely, but it sure worked beautifully, is we created a game of whack-a-mole for the people that are trying to take us down all the time, right? Because historically, what would happen is the independence movement would climb, 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 and then it would reach numbers that it hadn't reached before through a group or through a certain politician, and then it was looked like infighting, and the conservatives would get accused of eating their own, and oh, you guys can't get along for more than 5 minutes at a time, blah 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 blah. Well, that was only half true. What historically happens is the folks that don't want to see this happen go into they infiltrate the organization and then create this chaos in there so it pulls down from within. Well, this time there was no organization to create chaos within because we didn't allow that to happen, right? APP was doing their thing. Corey Morgan's doing his thing. Kathy and Angela are over here. These guys are over there. And then all these other voices came to join us that we've seen now, and they can't stop it. That's how it's made it. And then the second half of that is we left the politicians out of it. We have not allowed them to have one sniff of this at all. At all. Now, some people get upset with our premier because she won't take a side. And I usually get upset with those people for having that idea because she should not take a side. This is not, this is our fight. This isn't hers. This is ours. But other than that, yeah, we have left the politicians out of it. And that is why they couldn't wreck it.
Well, it almost seems like she has taken a side, and that's the side of democracy by just saying, I have 400,000 people that want to stay. I have 300,000 people that want to go. We need to put this to a vote so we can come together as Albertans for the future. And I think she charted that path masterfully. We've seen Pierre Poilievre go first and firmly state he was a nationalist. He's doing this. She's really walked a magnificent tightrope. And I think she's going to make sure a question is on that October 19th ballot. And I sure hope so.
I agree. She will. I think too, she knows that her political future depends on it, because her base wants that question on there. And we got rid of one premier already. We'll do it again if we have to. Yeah, she has taken you're right. That's very well said. She has taken the side of democracy, and like you're watching the rest of the country freak out. It's like, well, I thought this was a democratic country. Like, why are y'all upset?
Well, it's amazing as it's amazing as well because she can literally frame it as I have to let democracy go forward. I have a mandate. I'm the premier of democracy, and everybody can see on a federal level democracy is dying in darkness under Mark Carney with floor crossers and every kind of underhanded tactic. So I think that path really will shine really good for her, especially when you compare to her to Carney and what he's doing on a national level.
Mhm.
Well, exactly. And furthermore, within the Westminster system, she has to abide by certain rules as the premier. And so part of walking that line is abiding by those rules in order to enable us to be able to have this opportunity to have this vote. And so that's why she's doing well. Just leave her alone, let her do her job. Do I agree with everything she does? Absolutely not. And nor should anybody. I mean, she's not perfect. She's a human being all the same. However, she gave us the opportunity to have the petition. She gave us now, I'm pretty sure that question, what iteration it is, I don't know. We'll have to see what the courts do and all the rest of it. But Lukasik put one in, so we'll just use his, whatever. One way or another, there's going to be a question on that ballot.
Well, I was also going to say she's doing well walking that tightrope, but our enemies are doing very well to push supporters towards independence or even non-supporters to push them over towards independence, whether it's Mark Carney or Nenshi. I mean, every time they
Kenny.
open their mouth or have a new policy, but even Lukasik, I mean, a lot of people are giving his petition a hard time. I'm like, stop scrutinize it. It just keeps another door open for Danielle Smith. It seems like the more they try to stop us, the more they help us every step of the way.
It's very true. Every time Mark Carney opens his mouth, I'm loving it because that's five more people. Like it's unbelievable. You couldn't ask. I don't think you could ask for a better scenario or situation to be able to walk this movement through pragmatically and democratically. For sure, for sure, yeah. Because every time, and I think you mentioned Nat. You mentioned Kenny as well, right? Like he's just one of our best advocates. That guy, like, just get off of Twitter for a little bit. Oh my gosh,
And
yeah.
every day he looks more tired and more angry and bigger as well. But I will ask, and looking a little bit more towards the future, what kind of Alberta do you want to your grandchildren and even future generations to inherit?
The republic, as you see, my little shrine behind me, a republic, one where it's not, it has nothing to do with the crown, has nothing to do with old systems of government that have maybe they had their place at one point, maybe maybe they were good, but we've advanced now that they're not. So I want the future generations to be in a country of Alberta where their voice matters, where their vote matters, unlike right now, um, where their future matters. And politicians get out of the way of their future and instead let them chart the course, where there's much smaller government and much larger communities, where there's much like free choice on everything. I don't really care what you do as long as it's with consenting adults and you leave the kids out of it. Like seriously, it doesn't get any simpler than that. That's that's where I want my kids and my kids are already grown, but for them to continue to live out in my grandkids, where you have a dream of something you want to accomplish for yourself and you can do it because you're not taxed to death every time you make an extra dollar. That's what I want. That's what I want for them.
That's what we see a lot of us see within Alberta in becoming independent and what Alberta could actually achieve. But there are still some that might be undecided or on the fence, but they're thinking about it or are curious at least. So what would be some words of encouragement or a piece of advice you could give them to kind of push them a little bit over the edge?
Keep researching it. Keep and don't let other people decide for you. Don't let anybody else say, "Oh, well, that's a terrible idea. We shouldn't talk about that." Well, okay, that's their opinion. Now you go come up with your own. You go do the research. You make sure you listen to both sides of the argument. It's important. Talk to both sides and find out and then decide for yourself. Because this is the biggest decision that Albertans have ever made as regards to our future is we're taking the future into our hands for the first time. First time ever. We're deciding what it's going to look like. So the best thing you can do is go do your homework. There's no shortage of information out there. There's no shortage of podcasts. There's no shortage of YouTube videos. There's no shortage of Substack articles. There's no reason you can't look at both sides. Take an afternoon, look at both sides, go out, ask some questions. If you want to have me over, you want to have Angela over in the privacy of your own home where you can ask your questions and nobody else knows about it, have us over. Let's talk about it. But that's really the best way is for people to convince themselves. Go look at the information and then look at yourself in the mirror and say, can I handle the thought of Canada going down this dystopian path, because that's what it is, and still remain a part of that? Or do I want to maybe take a chance on a really cool future? Because that's your choice.
And that's a really good point as well, and the opportunity to make history as well. And thank you so much for your time. And I want to have you back on now to keep talking because it's incredibly insightful. And I also think what you and Angela are doing with the Alberta Women's Independence Network is also very, very smart, clever, and important to give those voices and those doubts also another avenue to come through. So thank you so much. And we always ask one last question of all our guests, which is, what does freedom mean to you?
What does freedom mean to me? Freedom means being able to get up in the morning, leave the house, not worry about how I'm going to pay my bills, not worry about what my grandson is going to learn in school, not worry about whether my kids are going to have a job next week because some politician in Ottawa made a decision, not worry about my retirement. Freedom to me means that if you want to own a gun, you can have a gun. If you don't want to have a gun, don't have a gun. Freedom to me means we're not taxed beyond belief. Freedom to me means you can come up with a dream and for your life, for your family, and achieve it. That's freedom. That's freedom. And we don't have any of that right now. So I'm looking forward to it when it gets here.
Kathy Flett, thank you so much.
Been a pleasure.